welcome to Talk About It, the official podcast of Phenomenology Club. This is our first official episode, so let me just give you a brief introduction real quick to let you know what's going on before we get into it. Basically, Phenomenology Club is exactly what its name suggests. A club. And what do clubs do? Stuff together. So, in the interest of doing stuff together, we as a club have come together to present to you this little roundtable discussion series where basically myself, Buttress, the leader of Phenomenology Club, and the club members are going to get together in our club Discord and have a discussion, a series of discussions, about the various topics that we talk about in our videos on the Phenomenology Club channel. And as these continue, I don't think that they need to all necessarily be limited to our video topics, but I just thought that this would be a great way to start, to go through the videos that have been uploaded to the channel already sequentially and just address them one by one as a club and ask each other questions, challenge each other, have displays of aggression towards each other. And so, what we did was have a discussion in our club Discord, the audio of which I am about to play for you. Forgive any audio hiccups, some people have some problems sometimes, but I listen to it. It's not extreme. I think it sounds all right. If you're interested in joining these discussions, if you're a club member, then you already have access to our club Discord. If you need help activating your rewards so you can get in there or anything, just send me a message on the Patreon. If you're not a member and you're interested in these sort of topics and becoming a member or just learning more about our club, please check out the Patreon. It's only $1 a month for membership. That gets you literally everything. Also, I've just relaunched our website. It's www.phenomenology.club. Whether you're a member or not, please go over there and check it out. We have a bunch of new content on there, including a new public art gallery. Because this podcast is only one of a few projects that we've recently undergone together collaboratively as a club. Emphasis on club. This is a community. Do you understand? Good. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this discussion. Like I said, we're going through the video topics, and this is the first one. So it will be about the first video we ever uploaded to the Phenomenology Club YouTube. And that video is titled Moral Relativism and Its Application to the Arts, Part 1. Let's talk about it.
Yo.
All right, so let's do it. Welcome, everybody, to our first Phenomenology Club roundtable discussion. We wanted to do like a little audio series where we can have members of our club talk, so it's not just me talking all the fucking time in our club. So I'm thinking this is the first time we're going to do this. If it goes well, maybe we can start doing this for every episode so we can get a little discussion going and hear how other people are thinking about the things that we're thinking about and stuff. So the first one we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk about the episode Moral Relativism and the Arts, which is the first episode I ever uploaded. Basically, I want to start by maybe taking any questions about what I said in the video so I can clarify anything if anyone needs me to. And then I'm hoping that I can just sort of be the moderator and take a backseat to a discussion that I want you guys to have about some of these concepts so we can get that club feedback. So also, when you start talking, maybe if you could just say your name and where you're from so we can just get a little introduction for everybody, get to know each other. And I'm going to upload this so it might be good for people too to be able to identify your voices. So I know Bash had some questions. Maybe he can start. so I could clarify some of what he was wondering about.
Bashnova from Scotland. I was just more or less trying to familiarise the term of what is moral relativism. I have rewatched the episode, but for layman's terms and someone that doesn't really know anything about it, what could you say what moral relativism is to someone that doesn't know?
Sure. Okay. So basically, I see a lot of people saying, like, they say things like morality is subjective. And what they're trying to say when they say that is that morality means something different to everybody else, right? And your opinion of morality might not be the same as my opinion of morality. But because really any term that any of us are familiar with, whether it's something like morality or even a word as simple as apple or anything, our relationship to any word is completely subjective. So with moral relativity, it's more useful to think about any action is right or wrong depending on what the goal of the action is. So I talked about murder, right? We can't say murder is wrong in every instance because there's things like murder and self-defense, which generally all cultures sort of agree upon, right? And the reason that is because people who are just out here murdering people for no reason, we can all agree that that's wrong. But if someone's trying to murder me, now if I murder them, now all of a sudden it's like that action is not necessarily considered immoral by most people. Why? Because I murdered someone too, But it's because they're trying to kill me. And so it's like my relative position to my right to be alive has been interrupted by this person. So by some method of transference, now I have the right to kill them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. So that's kind of cleared it up now. Yeah. I see what you mean.
Do you guys agree with that? Disagree with that? What do you think about that definition?
Sounds pretty sound to me.
How about, did anybody hear anything in the video that they didn't like? They didn't agree with what I was saying?
A painting being a painting, that's all it is.
And that real art is about itself. What exactly does it mean? Because some art doesn't have, I feel like some art doesn't have an intentional meaning when it's created. This is Cammie coming to you from New York.
Cammie. Okay, so actually, I would agree with you when you say that, a lot of art has no intention, but that's the art that I'm talking about, that I'm saying is about itself. Because even if an art piece has no intention, then what was the purpose in creating it? You know what I'm saying? There had to be a purpose. And the purpose of creating it and the purpose of creating any art, I would argue, is just to make art. So the purpose of any art piece that has no necessary concept or intention behind it, when you look at it, the intention is just to make an art piece. And that's the kind of art that I prefer. And that's the kind of art that I say is about itself.
Question. So to you, does that also include, like, I mean, in the sense that, like, all art is about itself, like, even if there's no, like, intention of, like, a point to be gotten across, a lot of times it's still made as, like, something to stand on its own, to be viewed by other people and to be, like, looked at and thought about. Like, are you including that in that, or is that, like, a different thing to you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the reason anybody makes art is to make an art piece. So the purpose of any art piece is to be art, right? And what is art except a thing that we all experience? I feel like the purpose of making it is similar to the purpose of speaking, You make it with the idea that people are going to experience it.
Yeah, with the concept of abstraction, the abstraction of thought and the feeling, putting it into a solid purpose, a solid state, so that you can reflect that emotional thing that you've got in and then put it out into the world. I see that, but sometimes it's better to have no feeling, or you can have total overloaded senses of feeling into it, where it gets confused, where the viewer does not know what it's about. So I think that's where the moral relativism thing comes in when you're viewing art, where it's a bit skewed. You don't know whether it's right or whether it's wrong.
Yeah, I think that's the thing when people say that art is subjective. Maybe what they're referring to is more that what I get out of any art piece might be different from what you get out of any art piece, because the thing with art, right, is a lot of times it's not explicit what we should be feeling, you know? If somebody painted a thing with the intention of making me feel sad, but I see it and I think it's really funny, then that's my subjective impression of the art piece, you know?
I've got a question.
Same here.
Go for it. And introduce yourself, please.
All right, I'm Ray from Arizona. You were talking about photos a lot and how you think that the medium just generally hasn't been like self-aware. How could a photograph be self-aware?
Okay, so what I was saying with that and with everything that we're saying here is sort of like, I gave the example of the Rothko, which is sort of an explicit example of a piece that I think is sort of about itself, right? It's just paint on canvas. It doesn't have any real conceptual properties that we can identify easily anyway. I don't look at it and think, oh, this is about the Iraq War or this is about whatever. But with photography, a lot of the times, with popular photography, it seems to very much always be about something, you know? It's like, look at this photo of this person, or this photo of this war, or, you know, that's like what most popular photography is. So that's why I say historically it's sort of unaware of itself. And what I think is more interesting for photos is photos that actually explore the physical format of what a photo is, because photographs are really just made from light exposing emulsion that's coated on celluloid, and you can do all sorts of crazy trippy ass things just playing with that process, and you're playing with the actual photographic principles of film, you know? So I tend to like photography that isn't really of something. I like a lot of cameraless photography, or even things that are just more abstract. Like, I think a lot of landscape photography really maximizes on the potential of photography to like get really crazy contrasts and do really crazy compositions and stuff. But I would say generally as a field, like, I don't like a lot of popular photography because so much of it is about something. If that makes sense to you?
You also mentioned once in your video about empathy, and I was wondering more about how that would relate necessarily to the arts.
In what way? Also, we're trying to keep it to the moral relativism thing, but I did talk about it in this video too. So is that what you're asking about?
Well, no, I was asking more like how feeling the piece, like looking at something and trying to
Oh, I lost you.
whatever piece that may be. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Can you repeat that last part again? You dropped out.
Just feeling like some type of emotion about any sort of art piece, really, in general, and how that's important, or how some people don't really think the exact same thing.
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of what can be said about my personal opinion about if a piece is good or bad is really how skilled the artist is at making us feel the emotion they intended. And of course, you can't always make that happen. I mean, you can't control people's responses to things, but I think just like somebody who's more well-spoken will be able to communicate to a larger group of people, and in that way they're like an articulate person and good at communicating, I think the same can be said for an artist. Like, you know, when these people make these like totally schmaltzy Hallmark films that like you can just tell they wanted us to bawl our fucking eyes out, but we just think it's hilarious, and there's doves flying in slow motion and shit, and it's ridiculous. I would say that that person failed and maybe are not as skilled as they want to be. You know what I'm saying?
But then
Yeah, I can just-
it can be argued, what if it's good to them? What if they weren't thinking about the skill and that's what they wanted to accomplish?
Well, maybe someone else can. Does someone else want to respond? I feel like this is turning into a lot of me talking. Let's hear some other people. Does anyone else want to answer what Cammy says?
What was it that Cammy said?
This is Les from America. And I think like, I mean, I think something, you can make something good and you can make something for the purpose of being good and enjoyable without necessarily making it to be like art, you know, like with the Hallmark movies and stuff. It's like, no, like, I think it's like, sorry, it's been a really long day.
No, you're good.
I also feel that in that way, someone can also intentionally make a bad piece of art. Even I don't really know why they would want to, but they could.
Well, that's the whole Francis Bacon thing. He had quoted saying he wanted his pictures to feel like a human had passed between them, like a snail leaving its slime. And you do get that feeling when you look at his stuff, that there's an uneven quality to his paintings, that there's some sort of disease of emotion in there. And you don't even have to look into his life too to actually feel that there's a sense of foreboding in his pictures. But someone like Rothko, they did a whole thing in London where they had his art, and the room was so dimly lit that people were in there for half an hour before they had actually seen that the paintings were actually hanging there, so that the people weren't really conceiving like, or we're in a Rothko show, but they're actually seeing it. And they had to wait till their eyes were adjusted, so then the emotion came out when they realised, all right, there's the work, right? And then the feelings start coming. And I've seen Rothko right in front of me, and I fucking hated it. I didn't understand it. But now I sort of do, from looking back at how my emotional senses were back then, because it's so abstract. I had no connotation of what he was actually doing.
All right. Can I chime in here? This is Summernet. So we've been going back and forth in the chat about whether or not something is good and whether it's something valuable and whether or not something has intrinsic worth. And I think if you're going to judge the craft of something, judge the craft of it. But look at all the factors around good art. Look at the art that you appreciate versus when you just said that your taste change and you evaluate it. Look at art produced in the time and the context it was not appreciated in, and now look at its reverence and every fucking textbook about it. Having an objective system of value, I think, is dangerous. I mean, especially if our whole conversation starts off with relativism. But I would just say that about valuable or good, that we need to divest the conversation between good, as in like something could be wholesomely good, versus whether or not it's well executed or whether or not you find it value. And value will be the most diverse conversation you can have about it because it's the most relative.
So, like, something that I think is useful here, like here in every area of philosophy too, is kind of just like stepping back a little bit from the kind of questions we're asking. Like, okay, we're talking about like, is something good or not? And like, what does that mean? So like, we could also ask like, what is good about something? Like, what was a person trying to get out of this? Like, why was it good to them? And like, what, like looking back on it, like you said, was stuff that wasn't appreciated during their time. Like when we look back on it and we place those in a history of art, like we're saying that there's something, you know, like good in that, like with respect to the history. So just like, instead of asking what's like, what is it good or is it not good? Just being like, okay, well, what's good about it? Or like, what makes that possible in this case?
But, you know,
I just like to interject here real quick. This is great. In response to what Summernet and John Dewey just said, because Summernet said that it's sort of dangerous to talk about art as having some sort of objective criteria for being good, and also that the context is very important. And those are two things I totally agree with. And I'm not sure if you watched the video, Summernet, but I talked about this too, because I think that art is definitely, the value of art is always changing for its context. You know, I gave the example of talking about a statement like the sky is blue, you know, like that's such an obvious statement at this point in history. Like anyone who says the sky is blue, that's not interesting. But imagine being literally the first person to say the sky is blue. Like one person that existed in this world was the first person. Like that is trippy as fuck. And I appreciate that person. And I'm jealous that they got to be the first person to say that, you know? So I definitely think context changes how valuable a statement is or a piece of art. And the same with the objective criteria thing. You know, I think that even when we talk about the skill executed in making an art piece, and I very much believe that what we appreciate about any art piece is the skill of the artist who made it. But skill is also such a nuanced thing, you know, because like I love Rothko, for example. Technically, a 5-year-old probably could make a Rothko painting. But would I say that the 5-year-old is as skilled as Rothko? Probably not. Like, skill doesn't necessarily mean being able to like make something photorealistic or something. We talk about skill a lot of times, and it sort of has this like assumed definition of like how refined is your technique? Can you make something look totally realistic? But I think skill also applies to being able to just basically execute your goal, whatever that goal may be. You know what I'm saying? So even if we're sort of trying to establish some kind of criteria for saying a piece of art is good or not good, I don't think that that would necessarily rely on some like obvious definition of what skill is. And the point of art and what I think is good art is art that achieves its goal of being art and capitalizing on the modes of abstraction, which is what all art is. Even a photograph of a person is an abstraction of that person. So my definition of art and what art should be is very loose. So even though it does sort of have this objective quote unquote criteria, it's not some like rigid thing, you know? I don't think there's some checklist we can go through. But I just wanted to say that and keep talking.
That reminded me of the first chart that you had in your moral relativism and its application to the arts, about how reaching your life goal, there's going to be someone that tries to fuck up your path to your life goal, and you essentially can fuck them up. But you could also travel a bunch of different routes as well to get to that same goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Like we always talk about, you know, like even if you try to talk about the strategy to get to a goal, like it's still never totally clear, you know? Like we talk about things like abortion. Like I think abortion is justified given our current reality, you know? But someone could feasibly make some sort of argument even to me where they could convince me maybe that abortion is not just even in the context of our current reality because the ends don't justify the means or something, you know? I think at the end of the day, everything comes down to who can make the best argument for something. And that's what the value of discourse and arguing is.
I also think, in terms of art, it also constructs a basic argument with practical application. There's a lot of theory that can be constructed into nuanced details to how one views art, but saying that it's practical application and making art that makes it so. That's what I see it as. The practical application of making painting is art, as well as the end as well as the end thing. That's how I see it, because I like doing the process. I'm actually more ingrained into the process of doing it, but whether I like it or not doesn't really factor into why I'm doing it, for the most part, until I actually step back and look at the end piece. If I hate it, then I hate it. But if I like doing it whilst I'm doing it, then it really doesn't weigh in to how the end piece is. So maybe I should meditate on that a bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean also just the process, experiencing it as the artist, even though I don't think the process really holds any value for the person that looks at your art piece. You having undergone the process of making it have learned a lot through that process, so it still can be valuable to you as an artist, no matter what.
Yeah, but that's
And
also
people
with
can
things
view it
like
different ways.
yeah, that's also to do things like, say, someone did performance art as well. You're actually viewing the said process of the art that someone has constructed, so you're part of the process of viewing it. If you don't enjoy it, then why are you not enjoying it? What's the emotional basis on it? Does it feel right whilst they're doing it? Does it feel wrong whilst they're doing it? And how do you equate those details into like what you're viewing?
Well, my opinion is that the best art that capitalizes on abstraction, that to me just means capitalizing on your personal feelings and emotional responses to things. So, yeah, if the best art is about itself, then that translates to me as the best art is honest and from true emotional responses that person is experiencing.
Well, this also raises the question of how much of what we experience art is about emotion, because we talk about that a lot. Like, emotion obviously plays into our appreciation of art, but we should also think about how art is experienced through our senses, and a lot of what we appreciate about it isn't necessarily emotional per se. Emotion, I think, can intensify our reaction to an art piece, and that's why we're interested in it from the perspective of phenomenology. At the end of the day, art is experienced through some sort of perceptive mode, whether I see it, I hear it. It doesn't always necessarily have to do with some conceptual sort of emotional response. Sometimes it really is just pleasing. Like, you ever see a yellow that's just like bright and like a nice hue, and you just like fucking love that yellow? Like,
Yeah.
emotion plays into my response to it, but a lot of our response to art is just purely ephemeral, and that's why I think it's important to always be thinking about the format of the piece, and what I was talking about with photography and painting. At the end of the day, this is a thing that doesn't just communicate some personal opinion or idea you have. It's also a thing that's going to be experienced literally, physically by a person.
Yeah, well, I don't mean in like a personal way. I think it's best when it's a common emotion, like if it's experienced from an emotional standpoint, that emotion is relatable to like everyone viewing it.
I think that like I understand what you're saying. Like, there could be a picture of a goldfinch chained to a dresser, and some people can look at that and view it as like an animal that's caged, that can't get away, that is being kept from freedom, and other people can see that and just be like, why the fuck did someone draw a picture of a goldfinch just chained to a thing for no reason? This is Reese in Florida, by the way.
I think that the best art exists without much context.
What?
I agree.
Yeah, because
you're left to figure it to yourself.
Yeah, you're left to your own summations of what to actually come into your own viewpoint of. Like, if the artist does not provide any concept to said art, like say Pia Fries or Toma Apps, they do very abstract stuff with no preconceived notions of what things are. Same with Marcel Duchamp, his fountain. You're kind of left looking at that going, what the hell is happening here? That's where the grey area between the artist and the viewer kind of blurs, so you're left to make your own summations of what is happening here. Am I being tricked, or am I actually allowed to feel what I'm feeling here? And of course you are. You're allowed to come up with your own thesis on, this is bad, this is horrible, I don't understand this, or this is amazing.
Can I ask just a super quick question? I don't want to derail y'all, but what was the premise exactly of? I think somebody said something that to me sounded kind of to the effect of like, the best art is like, isn't really about something. Is somebody say something like that?
Yeah, quite a few of us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I also feel that it's because, like, not even that it's not about something, but you don't have to know much about the context in which the art was made, or the set and setting, if you can just connect with the like actual thing of it without that piece, without being too familiar with that piece, like say it's from a different decade, for example.
Okay. Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, so
Like a
this
picture of.
Wait a second. Everyone's talking over each other. Let's let John go and then let's have a response. I think I saw Keisha pop up. Want to make sure we hear from everyone. So, John, what are you going to say?
Okay, I'll try to be quick. So, the idea that art that isn't about anything is the best art is, to me, it's like saying that, okay, like this kind of like the kind of excellence that is achieved there is something that is like more pure and like more universal, because the art is kind of its own reason for existing. Like anybody can look at it, like anybody has like the basic, there's no back reading to do on it basically. Like everybody has what they need to be able to enjoy that piece of art. But at the same time, like that's more like that's art that speaks about like something that's universally human, but like in a really like extra abstracted kind of way. Because like history is something that's pretty universally human too. And like a lot of art is really important for its historical relationship. Like what's that really famous painting of that battle? It's not Guernica, right? But it might be like Goya. It's like a painting of like a battle or something like that. Or
That's
like,
it.
Yeah. Like art that is really timely is like some of the most important and impactful art, because it's not about like just you and like the universal like individual. It's about you and like other people in that part of the human experience, which like to me, I think it's hard to defend that like the best art isn't about anything when like some of the most human art, because like art is valuable because it's human, and like the most human art is about multiple people and like the times we spend. I'm done.
Okay, but I just want to respond to that real quick. But I don't think any of us are saying that art that is about something is not as valuable. But you also have to consider, I mean, even a painting of a battle and whichever ones made it to be super famous, even those ones still are judged and valued because they are to a certain extent about themselves as paintings. And that's why, I'm sure a lot of people, I don't know which war painting you're talking about, but I'm sure a lot of people painted pictures of the same war. But there's a reason that we remember certain ones, because Goya or whoever it was gave special precedent to the skill of painting, and they came out the champion or whatever.
Yeah, it is like it's like a very exquisite and like original technique that is its own like value that carries it too. That's the one. That's totally the one I'm talking about.
And also, okay. And also, I mean, the format of all art too is so, the fact that we make any art has so much to do with the context of the time we're in. Like right now we make films. Film is my favorite format, but film is like such a new format and it's already on its way out. I mean, celluloid itself is like pretty much almost dead. Like I think in a century, there probably will be no more emulsion on celluloid. Like that's crazy. But like, and same with painting. I mean, painting, a lot of people will argue is dead, but painting has been the mode of, it's been like the thing you do if you make art for centuries and centuries now. So I mean, no matter what you're doing, you're engaged in this process of making art that is about itself as some sort of specific format. And so that's why it's not that I think people should like do this because they're not doing it. I think they need to pay more attention to the format of what they're doing because they already are engaged in it just by doing it. You know what I'm saying? So it's more like just be more mindful of it. But also Kesha was going to say something before, or Keisha, and they got cut off. I want to make sure they get to participate. Did you have something to say?
I'll say it in a bit. I've forgotten.
I'm sorry. Everyone was trying to talk kind of for a second. I just wanted to try to come in and moderate. Someone we haven't heard from. Is anyone trying to get a word in? Please do it.
I'm just soaking it in right now. So I have a question.
Okay, who's this?
Dewey again.
Dewey, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to know what everybody thinks about like the kind of like ethics of art, where it's like, okay, like, is it wrong to make like certain kinds of art, or like to what degree
are like you responsible for the consequences your art has, and like what are the contingencies that kind of question or that kind of inquiry is based on? Like, and also I just want to make a point that like we've talked mostly about visual art, and like this is gonna extend to like music and like all kinds of other like non-visual stuff too.
Absolutely. Does anyone want to answer Dewey's question about the ethics of art, how responsible you are for?
Yeah,
I got room.
Wait, who's got the? Yeah, you talk. Whoever's just talking. Let's hear from you.
All right. Well, I guess I just ran in here. No, I hear a lot about the ethics of art, and one of them, whether or not it is wrong to portray certain things, or whether or not it's wrong to engage on a certain level, what kind of shock art is valuable. One of the things I'll throw out there is the most interesting argument I've ever heard was I got called a piece of shit because we were discussing how to relate to people through art and being able to understand and then craft a response based off how you feel that people will interpret it. And it was called that level of engagement for being able to craft a response from the viewer or whatever, the recipient, is actually inherently manipulative and slightly unethical. I was wondering if anyone had heard that argument taken before.
Yes.
Hell, I have.
Yes, I actually have heard that art. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, my take on it is that when you create something, you have an intention that you want to spread based on your own internalized beliefs. So that could be good or bad. I don't know.
I feel like it all essentially also centers back to morality as well. Like, depending on how, like, the ethics of art to a certain person can be completely different to another's due to their, you know, their difference in morality.
Okay, so here's just like a quick. So, like, what do you remember? Like the Charlie Hebdo thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you all think about that?
I mean, whose responsibility is it? I mean,
wait, I don't know what that is. Can you tell us real quick?
Yeah, so Charlie Hebdo was that like satirical and often like very, very like like to some people like very controversial publication in France that had like they would draw Muhammad and stuff like that and like really make fun of him and like it was like very like mean or whatever. Like I saw some of the drawings and eventually somebody like shot up that office basically and like killed a bunch of people. So I just was wondering if people had just general thoughts about it. Like, I'm just generally really curious if people think much and like what they think about this.
Are we talking about obscenity?
Yeah, that's part of it.
I think there should be no censorship within art, to be honest with you, because if you censor art, then you're censoring your human emotion. So them depicting someone, well, because of the whole Islamic thing with their Islamic art of not actually making any human connection or making any human like figure in their art, so it became very, very geometric. That's their art. That's not everyone else's art. So I think the shooting was quite bad.
Well, right, but like, have you seen like the drawings though?
Yeah. I think it was fine.
Okay, so like, you can say though that like I'm gonna say that you could say that it's wrong to like censor art or whatever, but in not saying that necessarily that somebody should have stopped them and like forbid them from doing that or whatever. But at the same time, like I don't think what they were doing in particular was right because it's meant to be satirical. But if you look at the shit they do, it's like, you know, good satire. I forget who said it. I hope it wasn't H.L. Mencken because I'm kind of iffy on that dude. But like, the person said that good satire is supposed to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And it's just like, who does that comfort? You know, like who the fuck did those drawings comfort when like it's not like you're targeting like the actual power that like
like Saudi Arabia has, or like, anybody that has any kind of like position of dominance. Like, you're basically making fun of like terrorist groups that, yeah, they're fucking terrorist groups and like they're fascists and shit like that. But like, it's just some bottom of the barrel bullshit. Like, it's so easy to fucking do. And it's just like, yeah, you are like taking shots at some of the people who are the lowest, like on the ranking of who matters in the world, just of people in the Middle East in general. So like, to me, it's a really strong case for saying no. Like, no, y'all shouldn't be doing that. Like, you shouldn't be drawing like pictures of like Muslims getting shot like through the Quran or whatever, even though, Ben fucking Garrison is fucking, don't get me started. All right, I'm not going to get started about it. But like, yeah, you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. Well, I do agree with you. Like, but that's the thing with the far right way. The far right way that they are pushing their agenda on it, there has to be a callback, and that's just what the French do. You see what they did in the French Revolution.
No. But like, this isn't a pushback against the right though, because like a lot of the shit that happens in France, like you see people going to like the beach in like their bikinis or whatever, and like there was that time when the cops showed up to basically like arrest that woman for not having like a swimsuit that showed more skin because she wasn't showing.
This is political satire.
But it's just political satire. You're going to have that anyway.
You can't say it's just when it's like this. You can't say it's just political satire. You can't look at any piece of art and say
not
it's
anymore
just
because
this.
the building got shot up. Yeah.
Not.
But that's the thing. That's
hold on, everyone. Hold on. What Reese had something to say. Reese, say what you were going to say.
I mean, I think everyone has the right to draw whatever they want, even if they want to publicize it and it's very controversial, like these above. They still have the right to post it. I mean, there's people that have submerged crosses in their own piss and they've gotten no shit for it. I mean, well, they have to, but they still do it.
Right.
Oh, wait, like Piss Christ?
Like Piss Christ,
I think parody go too far, though.
Yeah, because okay, let me bring up another example because we're talking about political stuff right now. I don't know if you guys know that band White House. I forget the name of the leader, but his art was literally child pornography. And there was a lot of questions raised around the ethics of that. He had some piece that was like actually in a museum and they removed it and stuff. And people were talking about the ethics of having child pornography in art. I mean, what about things that are less politically inflammatory? And I think it sounds like we all generally agree that, you can't really censor art. I don't even know what that would look like. Like, would we want to make some law that's like, you can't do this thing? But we can all agree when someone's just like being a dick, So I mean, I don't know anyone that would actually call for the censorship of literal art, except maybe in instances like the one I just described with child pornography. Like, should he be allowed to make art that, let's say that he's not producing the content, he's just taking content he already has and turning it into something else? What about that? Is he allowed to do that? Or maybe he's allowed to do that, but he's not allowed to share that? What about things like that?
What about...
Well, if it's a reality, like something that actually happens, it depends. If there's actually children involved and like being harmed, obviously that's not good. But I don't know. I feel like nothing could be censored because it's all the bad, harsh realities should be shown too.
So like, this is something, because like, I think ultimately, like, especially when you get into a question of like, not just morality in art, but ethics in art too, like everything like this is going to end up being political, because I was reading about like all the shit with like, Tumblr taking off all their not safe for work content or whatever. Meanwhile, like there's still all kinds of Nazi shit and like white nationalist shit all over Tumblr.
There's still a bunch of nudes as well.
I mean, I'm sure, but like this idea though that like what I was trying to get to is like, if I need to rethink.
I think I know what you're saying, which is that essentially all of these arguments fall into a political reality, right? Even talking about the Muslim thing, and you were talking about piss Christ. Well, let
So,
me
like,
just finish. You
go
were
ahead, go
talking about piss Christ, and it's like, well, that's not really seen as offensive in our modern context, you know, whereas something that seems to target Muslims is more, it seems more inflammatory just because that's like such a hot debate right now. We see all this racism perpetuated against people from Arab countries and stuff. And even the thing with the child pornography, I mean, even that is a political issue too. And the question ultimately boils down to, should people be able to produce this thing because of its real world consequences, you know? Like all of this still falls into the realm of politics. You can't separate art from its political reality no matter what.
Yeah, because like just to finish up what I was going to say before is that you can make the case that, yeah, like if it's just like about something that's taboo, like if it's about children, but there are no actual children involved, you could say that that's okay. But at the same time, like one of the reasons why we've had trouble enforcing like laws about, you know, like stuff that portrays like underage people is that like people have called it a quote unquote like free speech issue to allow models to appear in pornography depicting people who are not of age. So it's like, you know, you can say that, you know, if no actual children are involved, but like that person might be older, like depicting somebody who's younger, and like that has a lot to do with like the laws that we pass and like who we protect and who we don't.
Totally, that's valid.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. Like as much as I said, no censorship in art, there is a line like that. Like take what the Baroque did. That was just a church's movement against like the austerity of the Protestant architectural style, but that's a church mandated thing. But as per to the Charlie Hebdo thing, it's the same sort of thing, but sort of reversed, where there is a kind of, it is wrong, I do agree, but you can't really. You're not Muslim, I'm guessing, so like, but you're not seeing it from a Muslim's point of view, but you still have that moral sense of that it's wrong to actually depict this.
Well, also the question, wait, I just want to say something real fast. The question also comes down to platforming, right? Because I mean, every fucking Nazi, racist, asshole is probably drawing terrible things in their notebook, you know? But I think the real question is like, how much of a platform should we give this thing? Which is like a whole other slew of bullshit, because I mean the art world is all bullshit anyway. But it's not even just about making the art, it's about propagating the art. You know what I'm saying? It's like people use art, like those drawings that you linked, to spread their own agenda. Like if nobody had ever given that person a platform, we wouldn't even be talking about them. We would have no idea who they are. Like there's a million people who draw offensive things and we'll never see them, you know?
Amen.
Then it really just boils down to whoever has the most money as an artist.
Yeah, because that's really what it was. It has been since quite a while. But then you've got grassroots things where things can grow to push an agenda, which I think the Charlie Hebdo thing really was. Because it grew out of that, and they were seeing the sign of the times to actually push a narrative, because they have always been political and very satirical with what they had been depicting. And it does strike a raw nerve, but if you don't like it, don't fucking read it. In my head,
yeah.
If you don't like it, don't read it. But also be aware that it is there, and what they're doing might not be right, but you have no place to say because you're not in the immediate thing that they're targeting. Like if I was Muslim, I'd be fucking angry, but I'm not, so I don't really have a fucking say in it because I've looked at the drawings and they don't really affect me because I've never really been brought up to actually go through a sensibility of having that in my upbringing.
But you have to also be conscious of the fact that, like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that aren't even Muslim that are offended at it just because it's so confrontational, like a piece like what was linked in here with the Muslim guy getting shot through the Quran. Like, I mean, I'm definitely don't support Islam in any way. I think Islam is like just as silly as Christianity, but I can see why people are offended by that. And I'm offended on their behalf as well, because it's just sort of like, it's like part of this culture of treating people as being like primitive and stupid, which is so hypocritical. Because look at how they treat Christianity. Like, I mean, it's like every culture across the world has some dumb fucking religion, and I think they're all stupid, and I think astrology and all that bullshit's stupid too, but we all have to respect each other. If I see someone trying to like bully and be way too confrontational with any group of people, especially a group of people that has like a strong ethnic identity, because a lot of this shit is just racism. It's not even about Islam. It's literally just being racist. So of course I'm going to be offended on their behalf too, just by way of being a human. Like you said, that things that don't affect you don't affect them. I don't think you meant it like that.
No,
but
no,
it's important.
I mean that I'm not in like that. I'm not Muslim, so I've not been brought up to think in that indoctrinated way, because I've not been brought up that way. But I can turn it off. Right. That's where you and I differ, where I can turn it off. It's not affecting me straight away because I don't have to think about that, because
I think there's also many right. And I think there's also many Muslims too that don't agree with the like not being able to draw Allah thing or something too. Like you got to think too, for every group of religious people, there's people that don't necessarily agree with all of the specific dogmas of that religion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, there's also awareness. There's also awareness as well when it comes to everything. I mean, one of the reasons that controversial art is so often praised rather than, or sometimes even hated rather than praised, rather than the other way around, is because it's I just lost my train of thought.
Buttress, I'm surprised you aren't more sympathetic to Islam in general.
Why is that?
Because of the emphasis, like especially in the earlier, we were talking on Twitter a while ago about early Islam and how it basically invented science the way that we know it today, and their explorations in math, their kind of exploration of art that is non-representational as something that is extra abstract to them. I don't know, it just seems like something that, I don't know, you would jive with a little bit. And I'm also curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, my opinion of all religion is that, I think that they're all amazing testaments to human creativity. Like Christianity, Islam, I think they're all so beautifully intricate and interesting and stuff. But I'm so vocally opposed to religion just partially because of my experience with it. It fucking fucked me up. I was raised Pentecostal, and it's it was super bad and fucked me up in a lot of ways and sort of traumatized me. So I have that personal experience, but also just seeing the effects a lot of it has on the world. I mean, religion seems to be the justification a lot of people have, whether in Christianity or in Islam or whatever, for things like oppressing women or being against gay people, all this shit. It's not that I don't think any individual religion is interesting and beautiful, but I can't really capitalize on that feeling until it stops being such an oppressive force in the world. You know what I'm saying? And when I'm talking about this and talking about the science and stuff, all of those things that came out of the Islamic civilization, all those great things, I don't think were dependent on a belief in Allah. I would argue that probably a lot of early scientists and stuff didn't even necessarily believe, they probably were just well, this is my culture. But I'm sure even back in ancient times, or back in this period we're talking about in like the early medieval ages where Islam is doing all this scientific shit. I'm sure many of those people who contributed to that didn't even necessarily explicitly believe that there was like a God. You know what I'm saying?
But like, don't you think that culture though is like more amenable just to that disposition in general when you focus on art that's like non-representational, where it's like, you know, God isn't this like thing. Like he's not this dude or whatever that's like ruling or anything like that. Like he is like, you know, in the sense that like God includes art, basically.
I mean, I don't.
Is God even real though?
I'm not like an expert on Islam, so I can't talk about it. But I mean, I personally
I'm just curious.
I don't really agree with any school of spirituality or religion, no matter how seemingly benevolent it is, personally. And if you watch my last video, you know why.
Well, I always see like the art, like the Islamic golden period of art, being with the non-people-esque thing. It ends up going into a kind of scientific golden ratio sort of thing with sacred geometric patterns, because they're going to notice that anyway through math and science. They're going to see these sort of things where God is in the science, I think, but I think it's got a little bit watered down now. But for the sake of art, I think it's absolutely magnificent. But to how it was depicted back then, for not making a clear depiction of their God, I don't think that was right. Because
they have depictions of him, but they aren't like devotional images. Like there are images that depict Muhammad, but like his face is always obscured. Like he's denied, like even or like Allah or Muhammad. Like you can't draw Muhammad either. Like so it's you kind of deny him like this personalization, basically.
I'm not sure how specific that the fact that they can't draw him is to like the religion, or if that just sort of became like a trend that they all went with. Because like even in Christianity, there's a lot of weird things like Pentecostals are so averse to Catholics, for example, and a lot of Pentecostals believe Catholics are straight up going to hell, partially because they believe they're so idolatrous. They're always fashioning little images of Jesus and of Mary. Yeah. So a lot of Christians have like a similar sort of attitude about God, and even in like Christian art, a lot of times they draw God and it's just some like big thing without a face, you know? Yeah. Like I think I don't know about Islam if it's like specifically in the Quran, but it could even be in the Bible, honestly, like somewhere in Leviticus. Like they say not to fashion gods for themselves, and the Israelites were always getting into trouble because they would make a fucking idol, you know? Like I don't
just couldn't stop.
They can't stop, bro. They gotta make that art.
Wait, there's no female idol in Islam at all? I don't know much about Islam, so I'm just wondering if anybody knows.
Any female
Osiris is the black god.
Idols. I mean, ideally there are no idols in Islam, but like Muhammad's wife, who was older than him in like
wife.
The Virgin Mary
is
a pretty decent figure in Islam, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and like
it's a bit weird to say the depiction of people because in like say Christianity, because one painting really springs to mind just now is Jacopo it's called Entombment of Christ, and it depicts Christ being taken down from the cross and Jesus being really heavy. And at the time when it was made, people hated it because
like he's fat.
No, it's because the weight of Jesus was seen to be as like really, it's supposed to be this lordly, lofty figure, and Mary was going to faint or something like that, and Jesus is actually heavy because you can see someone carrying him, and you can see the strained face, and people lost their minds about it because it was just they'd never seen Christ depicted that real and that heavy.
Too earthly. They made him too earthly.
Yeah, and it just completely dissuaded
things. Oh my God!
Things.
What is this? A penis that he has?
Oh my god, he's an actual
I
person.
thought he was a eunuch.
Yeah, so like it's depicted as someone who's absolutely completely heavy. He's an actual person, and they had no real actual sense that this might have actually fucking happened. There's the reality of it right now, that things are actually real. Like you're actually being lied to.
Yeah,
Maybe.
and then I'm sure once that idea is introduced, now it's like the thing. Now I feel like depicting Jesus's humanity is like fucking part of the game. Like, look at Passion of the Christ. Like, it's all about the physicality. Like, dude, Jesus was a human. He felt every fucking little thing that touched him and it hurt, you know? It's like, now they really hit home the point that, like, he was human, dude. Like, it's all...
Yeah, it
They
really
would,
fits
like,
in.
Huh?
I was just going to say, it really fits in with, like, our militaristic, like, very, like, real bodily culture. Like if you're bad, like, we take your body and we throw it in a fucking cage. Like, or, like, you know, if the cops beat you up or whatever, you fucking deserved it. Like, here's somebody whose suffering is, like, righteous and shit, and people just cream their fucking pants over it. It's fucking insane.
Totally. But yeah, the thing with like Jesus being heavy and now it's like he's depicted as being very human. That's kind of like what I was trying to get at with the Islam thing too, with like not drawing him. Like, I'm not sure if that's a specific rule or like it becomes like Christianity or religions sort of take on ideas just because of how popular or trendy they become. Like, I mean, you could look at the hijab in Islam, like that's become a huge point of debate because so many Muslims don't believe in the hijab and they want to get rid of it. And then all these other ones are like, it's a staple of the religion. Like, you can have so many differing opinions within the religion. So I'm sure there's like Muslims too who think that it's fine to make some painting of Allah. I actually saw a Muslim movie on YouTube that was really cool, and I'm not sure if it was in Arabic. Huh?
Was it about Averroes or was it about somebody newer?
It was like a period piece. It was from like the 80s, super low budget, like crazy. But I swear they had some depiction of Allah or Muhammad because there was a dude with like no face and a lot of light. Like, I think that was supposed to be him. I didn't really know what was going on. I was just taking it all.
That's him. Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that shit was dope. So, I mean, I'm sure, like, you know, for any opinion there is in any religion.
The drawings of Muhammad are dope. Like, the paintings of Muhammad are dope.
Let me just interject and say that any old schmuck can create a religion.
No, that's not true.
Dudism is a total thing. So, actually, it is a thing. That's
Dudism.
totally real.
And of course,
anybody can be the dude from Big Lebowski, though.
Well, but you can worship him. You can worship him whenever you fucking
anybody
want.
can worship a religion. No, it's not like nobody can know. Like anybody can start no religion.
And
Yeah.
yes, they can because Scientology
did it.
Here,
Scientology.
I mean, the ones that are
Oh, no.
Hey, I'm calling for law and order. You're all talking
Shut up,
over each
everyone.
other. I think anyone can start a religion, clearly, but how popular will yours be? That's really the real question, you know? Like, that's just kind of, it's like anything else, like becoming a celebrity. How can you, not anyone can guarantee that you will take flight.
I got a bitch. Can I like take 15 seconds for that?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so all right, you got your big three, and technically, you know, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. That's fine. You know, they have a very intertwined history. Now they are accepted religions, and they have a presence in all our society. That's fine. But especially in America, you have Mormons, and when Mormons go to door to door, they'll be like, "Oh no, they're trying to offer the religious services," and it makes me so upset how so fucking new they are that they it's like they got grandfathered in at the last minute, and like Scientologists are supposed to be these wackadoo people, and it's like you were born in Arizona. I mean,
okay, wait, but I just found this out about Mormonism, and I think it's exactly why they're so popular. Do you know that the whole like premise of Mormonism is that they are rising up now because the end times are near? Like, their whole religion is about how like Mormonism is rising because it's in anticipation of the final days or whatever. So that was their strategy to becoming famous.
Yeah.
Like,
Same with Christian Zionists.
It's a good excuse. It's a good excuse. Like, oh, we just popped up out of nowhere because it's our time, bro. That means the end times are coming soon. That's why. And people are like, oh,
They're called the
okay.
Latter-day Saints. Like, that's the name
Actually,
of the church.
like,
So
it's fun because it's actually
Wait, Ray,
like,
you were the one who was talking about Mormonism, right?
Yeah, I grew up Mormon. So, I mean, the other like title for the church, like the other name that these like that Mormons have for themselves are Latter-day Saints. Like Latter-day meaning like last days. Like it's within the title of the religion. Is the point?
Right. You were the one who was telling me about this. Was that accurate? What I just said?
I mean, yeah, you know, was brought back to the earth for these last, you know, these last years here, however long that'll be.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good strategy to getting popular, you know? Like, I mean, not saying they did that on purpose, but I'm saying it makes sense why a religion like that's like, oh, the reason we're new is because, like, this is part of the religion. Like, we're popping up to take care of the last days. Like, you know, it's justified.
They saw the teleology dorm and called the top bunk.
Wow, that's some deep humor. I have to think about that one.
There's quite a lot of Mormons in Scotland just now, which is quite interesting. I'm not saying whether it's good or interesting or bad interesting because I'm still undecided, but it's just it makes me feel a bit not uneasy. Just they're all right. Like I can talk to them easy, but I don't want to get into religious debate with them half the time because I just make them want to reaffirm their faith half the time. Like, do you really think that this is going to happen? Like, and it ends up reaffirming their faith because they're that blindly led into it.
Yeah, man, you got to understand the game. You got to understand the game that you're playing. Like when you engage them or anybody, like you have to be like. There's kinds of philosophy that are like, you know, by the book or whatever, but in general, philosophy is more like a game of basketball in the park. Like, you got to know what game you're playing with those guys, and you got to know how to handle them.
But I'm quite happy that I get to talk to them because some of them are actually, without anything to do with the religion, they're very nice people to talk to. They're just trying to make their way in the world, really.
Being nice is easy, though.
Yeah, it is. Like, you're a beautiful human being, and I love you, dude. Coneheads.
The Mormons were so sweet. And no, wait, those were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, dear you.
No, I'm friends with mad Jehovah's Witnesses. Like there was like a Kingdom Hall real close to where I grew up or whatever. Like one of my best friends was raised Jehovah's Witness. They're interesting. They don't salute the flag, so word up.
Right.
Wow.
Well, thank you for the discussion. This is Bashnova. I'm away. Thank you for the discussion, Bethany. Thank you, everyone. I need to go to bed.
Yeah, I was gonna say this might be a good place to wrap it up. We can keep talking in here, but just for the purpose of having an ending, because I'm gonna tell our bot to stop recording, and I'm gonna upload this as a little discussion. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I think this went really well. We definitely got off topic a little bit at the end, but I think we had a good discussion.
Yeah.
And if everyone agrees, I think we should definitely keep doing this.
Yeah, I'd like to.
I agree.
Hell yeah! All right, so yeah, you can stay in here and keep talking if you want. I'm gonna make this the official ending. Phenomenology Club signing off. Good night.
Bye.
I mean, we could talk shit now.
All right. Yeah. Now I can really get into it because all y'all are some idolaters.
With